Manchester United are finally back in Premier League action this weekend against Brentford. A tie which is set to cause a lot of problems for Manchester United. Brentford are a very good side and will not be easy. The question is, can Manchester United win this game? The answer is yes, but the bigger question is, how can Manchester United win this game? What is the tactical approach which we should see? Well, let's just get straight into this. Starting 11. In terms of the starting 11 for United, I would probably be leaning towards something very similar to what we saw against Liverpool in the FA Cup. And when I say similar, to be honest, I've gone for the same starting 11. There is an argument for someone like Casemiro to come into the side should he be fit. Maguire would have perhaps been ideal for this game, but he appears to be injured once again. Is Lisandro Martinez going to be back? Personally, I wouldn't rush him. So I think, why not, for the sake of keeping it a little more simple, go with the same starting 11. The next question is actually now, how do you actually play through Brentford? Because Brentford are a very good side. They're very good in a high press, they're very good in a mid block, and they're also good in a low block as well. So those are the three stages which United need to try and work around. We will start off with United trying to play their way out from the back against a Brentford high press. Why is the Brentford press so good, you might wonder? Because they go man to man. And in those man-to-man battles, they are big, they're strong, they're physical, they're aggressive, and they're able to create a lot of turnovers and win the ball nice and high up the pitch. The way that they will do this is fairly simple. The two strikers will move forward onto the two centre-backs, and then from here they have a variety of choices. For example, if they want to, they can move a wing-back all the way up onto the full-back, and then go man-to-man in midfield, with the wing-back on the other side also joining the press. This is something which Brentford will do at times. Another solution for them, though, is to actually push one of their midfielders a little bit wider over across like this, and actually bring the wide wing back on the other side infield a little bit to try and man mark in the midfield. But either way, they will pretty much cover all of your players in the high press. So how can United get out of these situations? Well, it's going to be quite difficult, because Manchester United are not a side which are blessed with playing out from the back, particularly with the likes of Shaw, Lisandro Martinez out injured. However, in the recent game between Brentford and Arsenal, I did see a slight hint of what United could do. And it's all about using the goalkeeper, which of course suits us with Onana in goal. So let's take a look at Arsenal in this game the other week. We can see Ben White wide on the ball here. And what we can see is that Brentford are going to press in a man-to-man fashion. 3 players up against the 3 Arsenal defenders, forcing Ben White to go all the way back to Aaron Ramsdale in goal. And we can see, as the ball has gone backwards, Brentford have used this as the trigger. They've squeezed up a few yards and are clearly, once again, in a man-to-man pressing system. However, the problem when you use a man-to-man pressing system is you can't press the goalkeeper, because you're pressing with 10 outfielders. If you use the goalkeeper, that's 11. It doesn't quite add up, the numbers. So what this means is that when someone like Ramsdale gets the ball and Ivan Toney in this situation is going to apply pressure, he actually now finds himself in a 1v2 situation. So this is how you outnumber their pressing approach. And if you are able to do this, you are able to manipulate the ball. Now we can see in this 2 versus 1 situation how much of a problem Toney has, because as the ball goes wide to Saliba, Ramsdale is now once again open. Should Ramsdale receive this next pass, which he eventually does via this sort of bounce pass method, up, back and through, it goes backwards, up and back I should say, to Ramsdale. Now what happens is the far forward, this forward here, now thinks he is the one responsible for squeezing in and applying pressure towards Aaron Ramsdale like this. However, he has now found himself, again, in the middle of nowhere a little bit. He finds himself outnumbered because of the goalkeeper. So when Ramsdale goes into Odegaard, the ball can then be worked wide and Arsenal find themselves out of the press, all because of the goalkeeper. So in my opinion, that is the bigger lesson which United need to take, have they watched that game. Onana. Onana will be very useful. So the key for me will be to play the ball out from the back. Of course, the forwards can't be in the box, so go wide to one of the centre-backs, work the ball wide to the full-back, and then the aim should be to, at times almost, try and bait Brentford onto us a little bit. Try and ask them to come and apply some pressure. We're then asking our defenders to be composed on the ball, which might be where it gets a little bit ropey, but we are trying to create a 2 versus 1 with Onana. Onana is always the spare man. Should McTominay drop in, you can see we are still 3 versus 2 in this situation. Use Onana as the spare player. The other option when you do this though, and you face a man-to-man press, is that as you go back to Onana, you then have the option to go long over the top. We've seen his passing ability, the ability to go over the top to Marcus Rashford. That could be useful. We've seen Bruno Fernandes making these runs in recent weeks off the ball, like he did against City. And of course, we also have Rasmus Højlund up front, who is a massive physical presence for the side. So these are the ways, in my opinion, which United can get out from the back and get some possession basically.
So before we continue into the video, a quick shout out to today's video sponsor, jerseyfifa.com. the home of all of the greatest football kits. Whether that be the new latest releases or the old classic ones like this, Jersey FIFA has something for everyone, and now you can check it out yourself using the link in the description down below. And also make sure to use code JerseyFIFA for 10% off when you order.
If United do manage to apply some of those principles which we spoke about earlier to the possession play, there will be situations where they move further forward towards the middle third of the pitch. From here, Brentford are once again very strong. They will often be set up in a 5-3-2 shape, which, as we can see, is incredibly narrow and extremely compact. There's a lot of players in these central areas, and it is hard to move the ball forward. Now, one approach which United could use in this situation is to play with a back three. Now, the reason you would do this is because Brentford have a front two. So, of course, by having a back three, you outnumber them. Again, it's quite simple maths, 3 versus 2. It gives United the advantage. Someone like Wan-Bissaka could move into these areas a little bit further forward, a bit like what he done against Liverpool. And this may be the best way for United to control possession and sustain possession. However, the question from here is how do you turn it from, say, controlled possession in these areas to actually progressing the ball forward? What is the best way to do it? Well, a slight system change might be in order. Now, that's not too much of an issue because Erik ten Hag does this a lot during games. We rarely see one shape from United. It will be a back three like this, but then suddenly Dalot will be further forward or something like that. United need to apply something similar here because as we find ourselves in these situations, we need to give the fullbacks the license to move a little bit further forward, to join the midfield, but also to invert slightly as well. So I'm not looking for fullbacks which hug the touchline. Fullbacks slightly inside. And Kobbie Mainoo actually is a solo pivot potentially. I wouldn't normally recommend this, and I'm only going to suggest it if United use narrow fullbacks. That is the key here. The fullbacks have to be narrow to support him still. But I'm actually going to ask McTominay to push a little bit further forward, and the same for Fernandes as well, and get our fullbacks into these positions. You might wonder, what is the aim of doing this basically? Well, first of all, United still outnumber the first phase. Brentford have 2 players, United have 5. Now, the important thing also, though, is that we also overload the next phase. Because if Højlund is able to push onto the last line, Marcus Rashford does the same, and so does Garnacho, you can pin Brentford back a little bit, because they will be wary of the United threats. What this leaves Brentford with is an extremely narrow midfield 3, and it's quite difficult to play through them. However, if you use narrow fullbacks, you can actually play around them, because what we can see is that United can have 5 players in these areas, Wan-Bissaka, Kobbie Mainoo, Dalot, McTominay and Bruno Fernandes, up against just 3 Brentford midfielders. And once again, this was something which Arsenal used to really good effect. So we can see the Brentford pressing front 2 over here. We've then got their midfield 3 in here. And we can see Arsenal have got a midfield 3 of their own. But then the 2 fullbacks are wide, but they're not too wide. They're not hugging the touchline. They are able to come infield. So what this means is that Arsenal have the extra players. And of course, as the move progresses, it means that you have the spare player, you can find a spare man. So now Ben White, rather than being in a back 3, has pushed further forward and is able to receive this pass. This is definitely something which United could do. The benefit of this is it allows you to find space just outside the Brentford midfield. Now again, the important thing is that you kind of cover each other on the far side, but we'll discuss that shortly. This will be an important part of the game for United, in my opinion, finding this slightly wider position. We also saw it for the Arsenal goal in this game. So on this first occasion, the ball just gets played wide, nothing really happens. However, what we can see here is Arsenal really implementing this well and really hurting Brentford. So again, we've got 2 centre-backs at the back, we've got a holding midfielder, and then 2 full-backs, one being particularly narrow on the far side. What this allows Arsenal to do is have the spare man. But the important decision they make here is to keep the ball. They don't force it forward. They work Brentford from side to side, and you can see once again Brentford in this 5-3-2 shape. However, what this shape means is that Arsenal do outnumber them. 5 players in here against a Brentford 3. Now, should someone like, let's say, Havertz up here drop a little bit deeper, you might say surely the centre-back is just going to follow him. But that's why you have other threats. It's why you have players like Marcus Rashford who can stretch the other way to prevent them from coming out and being too aggressive. When you do this, you create the overloads, you create fairly simple passing, triangles. This is what players work on in training all week, 3 versus 2 situations. You're able to find players in a bit of space, create these overloads, and therefore work the ball a bit more easily. And it creates these areas of space. And again, I'm thinking Diogo Dalot in this sort of position for perhaps a McTominay crashing into the box, Rasmus Højlund. You can see what I'm trying to get at here. You can see what I'm trying to cook. Now, importantly for United to actually apply this, they have to be patient on the ball. We can't be forcing it forward too quickly because we will surrender possession too easily and Brentford will counter-attack and hurt us. So that is one problem. We need to be fairly safe on the ball at times. What we also need to do though is make sure that if we do lose the ball, because it will happen, we are set up to deal with those transitions. And that is why, whilst I think the ball side fullback can move a little bit wider like we saw in those Arsenal clips with Ben White, I think the far fullback needs to be tucking in. Needs to be providing us with that extra number in midfield. And the likes of Bruno Fernandes and Scott McTominay, whilst I am asking them to push forward to join the last line, they shouldn't do it too early. Because if they do and we lose the possession of the ball in here, you can see we're going to be hit on the counter-attack and hurt. Tony and Wissa are really good on the break and they've got good strong ball carriers in midfield as well. So this is something which United will need to be wary of in this game. No matter how they set up, Brentford will carry a threat. But using that far fullback in particular to tuck in and be narrow, whilst the other one is also reasonably narrow, operating in these spaces here, you can see the situations we can create. Someone like Janelt can be taken out of the game if you get Kobbie Mainoo on the ball, because you can 3v1 him. The worst case scenario is that it actually turns into a 3v2 with Jensen, but again, you've still got the spare man. These are passes which Kobbie and Mainoo in particular is very capable of, but also Scott McTominay, and then Dalot can take advantage of this space, getting himself 2 versus 1, using the help of Garnacho, up against a wing-back. Or perhaps Collins might come out and engage, but then you create spaces to run into in behind the defence. And in my opinion, if United are to play in this way, then we have every chance of winning this game, getting an important 3 points, and getting ourselves right back in the race for Champions League football next season. So those are my thoughts on how United should approach this game. Now I want to hear yours in the comments down below. But apart from that, we are finished for today. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.